Welcome to the Line Life podcast. I'm Jeff Postlethwaite, senior editor of T&D World, and today we're bringing you more stories of the grit, courage, and inspirational teamwork that it takes to be a line worker.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Line Life podcast. My name is Amy Fishbach, and I'm the field editor for T&D World magazine. We just featured a two-part series featuring Chad Dubay, the founder of the Fallen Lineman organization, and now we're going to feature Andy Price, the founder of the International Lineman's Museum and Hall of Fame. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us, Amy.
Andy, first, can you take our Line Life podcast listeners back to 1996 when you first founded the museum in Shelby, North Carolina? What was it about your nationwide travels that inspired you to start the museum and preserve the history of the line trade?
So, funny story about the museum. It actually started by accident. I was not planning on starting a museum. As I traveled around the country, I was a salesman for American Safety Utility Corporation. And when I was in lobbies waiting to see whoever I may be there to see, I would look at old photographs and different things that they may have in their lobby. And just got my curiosity up. I wondered what happened to all that old stuff. So as I traveled around the country, I just started asking for pictures or old tools or different things. And things started coming in. And one day I had more than I knew what to do with, way more than the display case that I had planned on trying to fill in the lobby at American Safety. So that's when I done some research and found at that time there was no Lineman Museum, and that's how the museum came to be.
Very cool. What did you have in your collection in the very beginning?
Very small things. It was old photos, old hand tools, some small insulators and things like that. We didn't have a lot initially when I filled the original display case because there just wasn't a lot of room in it.
So tell me a little bit about those photos, because I love old photos of line work. What kind of photos were those?
Some of my very favorite things in the museum are the photos. They tell a story if you'll just look at them. But we have old photos going back to the late 1800s coming forward of line work, even in the horse-drawn buggy days. And we have everything from women line working during wartime to the telegraph lines, power lines. We've just got some really cool old pictures. However, I must say one of my favorite is not one of the oldest, but it's obviously the Kiss of Life photo.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we have a large poster-sized photo of that Mr. Thompson actually autographed. And we have his belt actually hanging beside the photo. So that's one of my favorites.
That is so cool. I love that. That's amazing. And then you moved the museum upstairs into a 2,000 square foot space after it was in the lobby. What did you add to your collection at that point?
I added all the bigger things that we couldn't get in the display case. It was old signs. It was old wooden hot sticks. It was bigger insulators, transformers, and things of that nature. Just the items that, we could never got in the display case. Once we moved upstairs, it started smaller, and it just kept growing until we filled up to 2,000 square feet. And I guess fortunately for us, we've outgrown that space by far.
What kind of tools did you have in your collection, and which one of those is your favorite?
Some of my favorite tools that we have upstairs, obviously anything, pre-1900s, anything from the late 1890s, some Klein pliers. We have an 1890 Klein grip upstairs. We have some old Western Union blocks upstairs. Some of those are some of my favorite tools.
That's cool. And what about the insulators? I've had some line workers that I've written about over the years have given me a few insulators that are absolutely gorgeous. How do you display those, and which one do you like the best out of those?
Well, we display those in several different ways. We have a big H structure upstairs with about 10 cross arms on it with insulators all the way across it. Then we have them in various other locations in the museum, but some of them, our more valuable ones, are actually in display cases. Some of my favorite ones is probably one of the, we have one of the original Niagara Mohawks from the 1890s. It was built by Imperial Porcelain Works. Very rare, depending on who you read and what you talk to in Google. There's about 10 to 13 known to exist. Mr. Alan Drew was in here, who wrote The American Lineman, and he said he knows of about 10 that exist. So definitely that's one of my favorites just because of its rarity. Another one I like a lot, we have it's called a CD-788. It's actually from the Civil War era. It was a telegraph insulator. It was circa 1865. But probably one of the most visitor favorite insulators we have in the museum is actually a Coke bottle. A lot of people don't know that Coke bottles were actually used as insulators, but the Navy Seabees would actually use these, and I've only seen two. One is in our museum here at the International Lineman Museum and Hall of Fame, and the other one's in the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, that's really interesting. And then can you talk a little bit more about the signs, Andy, that you have featured in the International Lineman's Museum?
We have all kind of old porcelain signs from different power companies around the country. We have some from foreign countries written in foreign languages, different voltage signs, do not climb. We have a lot of the old Ready Kilowatt and Willie Wirehand signs, and those are probably some of the visitors' favorites, those two.
Yeah, I love those. I think those are really neat. And Andy, next let's talk about the trailers, trucks, and vehicles that are in the museum. You had said that some are now more than 100 years old. How do you think some of these are different or maybe even the same as what line workers use today out in the field?
Well, we have quite a few old vehicles, and I guess the only way they're really similar is that they were built to work, just like the vehicles of today.
Yes.
But definitely a lot different than what is used today. We have a 1945 telescoping ladder truck that was pre-bucket trucks, but this ladder would elevate and it would also pivot 360 degrees. And you can actually, by throwing the weight of your body, move this ladder in a complete circle around on the boom of the truck. So that's pretty cool. We have a 1957 A-frame line truck. Everybody's seen the old photos of the old line trucks from the 40s and the 50s, where they use the A-frames to, set poles, raise transformers, etc. One of the coolest pieces we have in the museum is the oldest hot stick trailer known to exist. It is circa 1920. It was hand built out of wood, and it came from Montana, and we believe it was originally used by Montana Power.
That is amazing. In 2007, you started the Lineman's Hall of Fame. How did that get started, and how can line workers today nominate someone for consideration?
After we started the museum and I saw what a hit it was and how much people really appreciated what we were doing and, found out how much people like preserving the history, it inspired me to do more. I wanted to do more for the industry and I wanted to do more for the museum. And, we always talk about linemen, no one ever thinks about a lineman until the lights go off. And then guess what? They are truly one of our first responders. They're right there with police and medic and fire. They respond in disasters when we need them. So I started doing some research about that, and there was no Lineman Hall of Fame. So we started that, and man, that was just one of the greatest things we've ever done. Just the people we've nominated and the people that have gone into it. And I think the one common thing that I hear from every single person that was nominated is, I'm not worthy. That's what they all think. Everybody thinks they weren't worthy, but it's an honor for these men to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And, it's very emotional. And I mean, we've had some of the biggest, strongest, burly men you've ever seen literally crying, tears in their eyes as they receive their award, or either the night before at the dinner when we had our banquets. And it's just moving to hear their stories and hear their family members talk about them. And it's just one of the greatest things that we've ever done as a museum is start the Hall of Fame.
And you had some women in there as well, right? In the Hall of Fame? Yes.
We do. I'm so excited. We actually have two ladies who are actually in. And this year, we're excited to announce that we have our first African American, and he is a male who is going in. And we're very excited about that.
That's wonderful. Congratulations to him and all the new inductees for the International Lineman's Hall of Fame. I look forward to hearing more about them. And then also, you have some exciting news that you're relocating the museum to Leesburg, Florida, after you've outgrown your current location. How would you describe the new spot for the International Lineman's Museum and Hall of Fame?
It is absolutely paradise. I have been looking for many years about trying to find a place to relocate the museum because we have outgrown our current space. I probably have 10 times more in storage, if not more, than I have on display. We just have so much. And the property that we found, I found it online, and it was a former museum. It's the former Paquette's Tractor International Farmall Museum. Mr. Paquette had hundreds of old restored International and Farmall tractors on this property. And then when Mr. Paquette passed away, his four children decided to sell all of his tractors, and the property's up for sale. So we actually found the property, and it is breathtaking. It is 22 acres. It has 3 ponds on it. It's all fenced in with white vinyl fence. It was called the Buffalo Nickel Ranch originally, and it's just picture perfect in every way. It has a guest home on it. It has an apartment on it. There's an event center on it, and we will use the event center for corporate events, banquets, weddings, parties, trade shows, and all those funds will be going to help the museum survive. It'll pay the power bills. It'll pay the repair bills. It'll pay the insurance and all those bills that are associated with anything you may own, such as a museum. So, very, very excited to have a good constant revenue stream to fund the museum. And by having this property, it will be in the name of an LLC, so it will always be there. Even after I'm long gone, it will be continue to exist and be operated by a board of directors.
That's wonderful. And one of the things that you have on there, as you mentioned, test lab tours. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That is correct. So across the road from this property is another building that I am purchasing, and it will be a second location for American Safety Utility Corporation. This actually came as an idea from one of my board of directors, something I never even thought of. He said, man, you ought to make it where people can see test labs. Most people have never got to see a high voltage test lab and see gloves being tested. So we're going to try to design that so when they leave the museum, they can walk across the road and they will be able to actually see rubber gloves being tested.
That's wonderful. I think you're right. I don't think a lot of people have ever seen that. That's wonderful. And then you're also going to have a theater and a gift shop. What are you planning to show in the theater and sell in the gift shop?
Well, like many museums, we want to have a theater when you first come in that will start the tour off. And the first thing to do is kind of give you a little background of line work and lineman and our grid system and how it all came to be. We'll just kind of tell the history and build you up and get you excited before you actually start your tour. As far as the gift shop, we plan on having all kind of items. We were going to have hats and T-shirts and replicas of old signs and all kind of different merchandise that will continue to evolve. We'll probably have miniatures of the Hall of Fame granite with the names engraved on it, and fallen linemen are going to have miniatures of their fallen lineman monument there for sale as well.
That's great. And then what about the RV hookups? So will line workers be able to use them when they come visit the museum? Is it kind of like a tourist destination then for them where they can bring their families and such?
Well, that's the most exciting part about our new location. It is definitely a tourism spot. It is in Leesburg, Florida, and you're about 60 minutes from Disney, Universal, and all those things. You're an hour and a half from Tampa. You're an hour and a half from Daytona Beach. So it's centrally located in Florida. And since Florida is a tourism destination, people are there for all kind of things. So we thought it'd be a great spot for us. When people are on vacation, they can stop by and see the museum as well. And as far as the RV hookups, that's absolutely what they will be used for. When people come to visit, if they want to stay a night, the RV hookups will be available.
Talk a little bit more about the event center. You had said that you were going to host the Florida Lineman's Rodeo, which is really exciting. Talk about what else you're planning on hosting.
Absolutely. That's one of our goals, is to try to have the Florida Lineman's competition held there. That is not definite yet and secured yet, but that's something we wanted to talk to them about and try to achieve. We've talked to the National Insulator guys about potentially holding insulator shows there. We'd like to have small trade shows, and, eventually that will just continue to evolve and grow. And I'm not sure what all it will host, but I know we did talk to Duke Energy, and they are always looking for event centers in and around Florida. So people like that could be a potential. I know the city of Leesburg used to rent it when the Paquettes owned it, and they used it for a lot of Christmas parties and training events and things of that nature. So the sky's the limit with the event center. But we're excited to host those events along with weddings and barbecues and music festivals, etc.
That's fabulous. And then you said that you have a lot of one-of-a-kind artifacts donated by collectors. And then you also said you had a lot in storage. So what can line workers expect to see in this new museum that they didn't see before?
Some things you're going to be able to see in the museum that are one-of-a-kind or rare that you'll never see anywhere else. We have the original patent from 1933 from curved hand rubber gloves from Emerson White of the White Rubber Company. That is not a copy. That is the original. So it is one of a kind. We have the original Bashland sign. It's a porcelain and neon sign from the W.M. Bashland Company in Grove City, Pennsylvania, that we have had restored that will be on display. We have the original Salisbury big porcelain sign that was on the manufacturing plant in Chicago, Illinois. That's just a few of the things that are one of a kind that you'll be able to see there.
Talk about the memorial statue that you have and the Fallen Lineman organization and how that will be part of Lineman Ranch.
Absolutely. Again, this is one of the things that's so exciting. Chad DeBay is the founder of Fallen Lineman organization, often referred to as FLOW, and he has the Lineman Memorial, which is the lineman kneeling. And Chad and I have talked for 10 or 12 years about getting together and putting our museum and his fallen lineman memorial in one place. Chad and I both have always thought we could be the one common thing that brings this entire industry together, whether you're union, non-union, work for an investor-owned, a contractor, a municipal, a co-op. We're the one thing that they could all share and have in common. And by putting these two attractions together, it'll be a one-stop shop for linemen. You can see the Lineman Hall of Fame. You can see the Fallen Lineman Memorial along with the museum as well, and see the whole history of our industry. So we're really, really excited to be partnering with Fallen Lineman organization on what we're going to be calling Lineman Ranch.
Love that. And then where can line workers go for more information about the museum when it opens in mid-2025?
We will have more information coming on our website as we get closer. It's linemanmuseum.org. Also on all our social media pages, International Lineman Museum and the Fallen Lineman will have the information on their pages as well. So stay tuned because we have some exciting things coming.
Finally, Andy, why do you think it's important to preserve the history of the line trade?
I think this is the greatest story that's never been told. That's what I call it. There's so much that went into this industry. There's so many people who gave their lives to give us the power grid that we have today. And, without linemen and all they've done since the late 1800s, we couldn't exist today without power. Everything we touch today involves power, from our cell phones to our computers to our heat, our air, our refrigerators. I just don't think the world could survive without power anymore. And the linemen of this country and all over the world, they're responsible for that. And it's just such an amazing story. If you've never read Alan Drew's book, I definitely encourage you to read that because it is, from start to finish, where we are today, the greatest book ever written, in my opinion.
I have a copy of that book. It is absolutely fabulous and so in depth. It's amazing. Well, Andy, thank you so much for being a guest on the Line Life podcast. I hope many of our listeners will visit your new museum next year.
Amy, thank you so much. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your time.
Thank you, Amy.
This episode of the Line Life podcast was written, recorded, and edited by Amy Fishbach. It was produced by Jeff Postlethwaite. That's me. To listen to past episodes, visit www.tdworld.com/podcasts or find us at Podbean. You could also drop us a voice memo or message at linelifepodcast@gmail.com with your comments on this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please follow this show on Podbean or your favorite podcasting app to be updated when new episodes are released. Thank you for listening.